Welcome to the Hirewell Recruiting Insights podcast. I'm your host, James Hornick, partner at Hirewell. With me is a very special guest, the former podcast host here at Hirewell, who I successfully usurped. Is that the word? Usurped?
More of a coup, I think.
Coup.
Yeah.
Our fearless leader, the CEO of Hirewell, Matt Massucci.
Hi, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So it's the last cast we're going to do this year, both podcast and LinkedIn Live. So I know the year's winding down for everyone. We actually thought it'd be kind of interesting. I didn't even realize the decade was ending until like you mentioned it, like time flies. We thought one interesting idea would be to talk about really what's changed in both the industry over the last 10 years or so, as well as Hirewell, because we've grown a ton. And we don't talk about ourselves a whole lot on these LinkedIn Live podcasts, but I think in the context of what's happened in the market and how the industry has changed a lot, some of the things that we've done as well as some of the things we've seen, it could be interesting insights for people kind of within the industry and within HR and whatnot. So I think the thing we were talking about is to really get the full effect, you kind of have to cheat and go back like another year. Because I think really it's like that 2008, 2009 timeframe to now. Because I do think that the crash and how companies and the hiring, how everything kind of bottomed out really did a lot to change both the industry and kind of how we think about things. But you have a better memory than I do, despite being several years older. What's your take? Like, how do you think that time period kind of really affected how you saw the industry?
So it's a good question. For people who maybe weren't in the workforce in the 2008-2009 Great Recession, it was fairly rough for people in just about any space, but in anything as cyclical as recruiting and staffing, it was quite an event. I was using kind of all the information we have, data, to look at sort of what we were doing at the time, how large we were. I think we were never terribly large in that past decade. I think we peaked at 12 or 13 people. I think we got as small as 6 or 7 in early 2009. But as that year progressed, we realized the world wasn't going to end. People were going to start hiring. The banks weren't all going to fail. We use that as an opportunity to really start to grow rapidly and to start kind of what I consider the second phase of our company, and that was being more than just a tech recruiting firm, but a full suite of talent acquisition solutions. Basically, help companies of all shapes and sizes grow and attract top talent, no matter where they are, what they're doing, and kind of what they're hiring for. So I think that's kind of where we made some major changes, and I think we've seen some exciting things happen. And part of that, when we started the company, and again a long time ago, the idea was to be more than just a recruiting firm, but be a solutions provider, a consulting firm in the space. And but it's easier said than done, right? When you're starting a business, you just have to kind of do what you can to drive revenue, get clients, and you kind of do what they ask. But we were able to kind of pull back from that earlier recession and then start to execute on the plan. And the plan was, again, more than just tech recruiting, but to be able to help companies in all facets. And that kind of segues into the growth we made in 2010. Is when I talk to clients or prospective employees, that's what I describe is that's where we went from being just a tech recruiting firm. We launched our HR practice. We started doing what became our our managed recruiting or MRP offering, and the rest is kind of history.
I think that just kind of looking at and I say this, knowing that I'm sure our competitors are watching this, but getting into HR recruiting, it's like a cheat code. And it's one of those things like, I can't believe everyone doesn't do HR recruiting. And like, what are you thinking if you're not trying to positively help impact the lives of the people who are frankly the ones who either get you in or block you out of kind of working with organizations. And I really look back at that being kind of the first area that we got into, and then seeing the success of that is how we decided to get into digital marketing and getting into sales and getting into finance and accounting, recruiting, all these other areas. You might remember better, but I know that the thing that was interesting about 2009 is we still did all right. Like it wasn't a great year, but because we were focused in tech, but there were so many organizations in other parts of the industry, non-tech firms, and even some tech firms that just got absolutely crushed, places that went out of business. And I think that was really a big thing for us in realizing like the importance of diversification of the types of things you work on and the types of people you help, because I hate it when people start talking about there's another recession looming, because we just don't know when one's going to come. It could still be years off, who knows. But being as diversified as possible. That way you set yourself up for, because I mean, you remember in 2001 when that happened, I mean, tech got absolutely demolished. I mean, there was no tech recruiting for those couple years after that, just because there were more tech people than there were like jobs at that point. And then, you know, the recession after that was kind of the opposite, where a lot of other places got hit much harder. So, but that's what I've really enjoyed the most about the last 10 years or so, is just getting into, as you say, being more of a solutions provider. We're able to kind of structure solutions around whatever a hiring challenge might be. There might be organizations that need to, not just tech, but they need someone to fill their finance and accounting roles and HR roles, and they don't want to work with 10 different firms to do it. So,
yeah, I mean, when you think about like the basis for starting our human resources practice, the firm I was at, you know, prior to Hirewell, did that and did it well, and I was always impressed by the level of relationships they were able to drive. You help identify a head of HR, head of talent acquisition, and then, you know, they're able to make some phenomenal introductions for the rest of the organization. So that was a major move, and you know, by, you know, finding Mike Ehlers and bringing him on back in the day, and that's part of my notes. I was looking at who was actually with us before 2010. So there are three of us that are still here. You, me, and Mark.
The golden boy.
Yep. Mark was only like 25 at the time, but you know, Mike Ehlers joined in 2010. I think pretty much the first week of then, and that was effectively what launched our HR practice. And the whole basis for that was, you know, those first 7-8 years, we worked with a ton of high growth tech companies. It was exciting, but inevitably they kind of went the same evolution as, you know, what we see most companies do, with it, that when you're under 25, 50 or so people, you don't necessarily have an HR function. You're eventually going to build one in-house. And, you know, oftentimes when you're a recruiting firm and that's your client base, that is going to, you know, it's going to greatly impact the nature of the relationship. And sometimes it is in a positive way. But if, you know, sometimes the idea of insourcing your HR and talent acquisition function is going to be, you know, kind of the end of a relationship for just a pure play tech recruiting company. And that was silly. Like, there's just no reason. I mean, companies, it'd be foolish to not tell them they should start to, you know, look at in-house, you know, talent if you know, hiring is going to be a core competency, and we want to be the ones to be able to help them with it.
I remember like my previous job, that was always what's your rebuttal to tell companies they shouldn't build out their own internal recruiting? It's just like, it's the stupidest thing ever. Like, of course they should build out their own internal recruiting. Like, it's focusing on, you know, you're trying to use a sales trick to like prevent an obvious like business evolution. So
exactly. And, you know, and that sort of spurred then the other thing we launched is, again, I mentioned that managed recruiting program, because that is the concept too. Maybe they don't want to build out an in-house recruiting department, or they have one, but they recognize they need additional bandwidth. So that was the concept of how, you know, we work them on more of a retainer-based model or on a monthly fee. And, you know, looking through our first two clients, you know, we did that within 2010. One of which was Savo, I believe they're Seismic now.
Yeah.
And then the other one was RightPoint, and you know, RightPoint just recently got bought by Genpact, which is obviously you know, quite the story. When we first started working with Brad and Ross, I think they had under 10 people, and when they got bought, they were up to 450. So it's impressive.
Can't believe it's been that long. I used to sit on site there, kind of managing that first MRP, and we are trying to figure out like how the model worked, you know, and ended up working out really well, both for them and for us, in terms of kind of helping us kind of evolve that model of business. So, I don't know. Did you want to talk? Is there anything else you want to highlight about the MRP? I don't know. This is your chance to really stump on it.
No, that's
it's
good.
your podcast, so
no, you know, we got plenty of material online. If you're interested, get in touch. We'd love to talk about it. But you know, when we had one or two, and you know, I doubt Brad or Ross are watching it now, but no, we didn't really have it figured out at the time. We've come a long way. I think at any given time. I mean, you know, I think the interesting fact is back then, you know, we had two sort of fledgling ones that were trying to figure it out. Now it represents roughly 40% of our business, is what we consider managed recruiting, retainer-based work. So that's been the evolution we've made. I mean, again, the concept is we want to be seen as you know, partners with clients, and you know, we can drive down the hiring cost by doing that, by having that kind of dedicated one-to-one approach. But, you know, it takes kind of trust and the ability to deliver, to continue to make it work. And it's been exciting.
So what else we want to chat about? We got our office changes and stuff since then. I know you got a bunch of numbers written down here and up on the board, so I don't know what kind of metrics you got.
All kinds. So, you know, I was looking at the numbers. So as I said, there are three of us here, you know, prior to 2010, four counting Mike when he joined in 2010. We had three people join in 2011, that was Brendan, Don, and Mr. Bill Gates. 2012, Zach Collop joined. 2013, Allie Rentschler, and then another 3 joined in 14. Another 5 joined us in 2015. So roughly 20 people have been here over 4 years, but we are up to 53 now. So that means obviously another 33 have joined in the last 3.5 years or so. So it's been exciting. Definitely excited to have the team we've built, and I think that's what the success we've had has been all based on all of them and what they've been able to accomplish.
So is this going to hockey stick from here? Are we going to be like 3x by this time next year, 10x by?
By this time next year, I don't think that's our approach. I don't think that's quite how you do it in the recruiting world. But it'd be nice.
Spend money to make money.
Yeah.
Anyways, are there any? I'm trying to think in terms of one thing that's different too, and I don't know how much you want to get into this, but we've also had a lot of success in just knowing that people's life situations are going to change and whatnot. And we've had, some stories of people who, wanted to go different directions, but we still found ways to kind of build build a spot for them in the organization, which is.
Well, you're a perfect example of that, right? You started as a tech recruiter, ran our digital practice, and now you just do podcasts all day.
Yeah, pretty much. That's all I do. Podcasts.
I joke. So one of the things we're proud about is the lack of turnover, right? We through our recent holistic assessment we found that we roughly about 6% turnover over the last 12 months, which I think anybody who knows anything about the third-party recruiting or agency world knows that that's extremely low. I would guess that it's probably a quarter of what the industry average is. But I also, what I'm proudest about is we've only had 2 other people ever leave us for a competitor, and one of those came back, and that's Dawn. You're referencing people who've kind of done on a flexible arrangement, and we were joking about that at the partner dinner we had last week. Dawn, when she put her notice in, I knew as stubborn as she is, I was not gonna be able to talk her out of it, and I think I can talk most people out of a lot of things, but I knew there was just no chance of that happening. So I said, all right, tell your mind's made up. Let's just have coffee in 3 months, and we'll just see how it's going. So I could tell, but based on kind of her inability to answer a lot of the questions I had, that it wasn't the most well thought out decision. And Dawn, whether you're watching or not,
she'll hear about this, I'm sure.
So we have coffee, and sure enough, it's not going as great as planned. So she's like, I'm interested in coming back, but she had a set of kind of demands, and those demands were essentially working from Europe for the first 4 to 6 months. So,
sure.
But I knew Dawn was good. I knew she had potential, and we really wanted to have her back. And that was really when we started our managed recruiting took off, and we were able to have her support a fairly large project that we were doing. And we knew she was good. We knew she could handle it. And it just was a matter of kind of working at sort of odd hours and supporting. I think it was you and a couple other people on that.
There's a few it kind of dovetails. That was not to get sidetracked, but there was a question I've gotten a few times recently from people who are looking for remote work, or they want to move across the country, and they're like kind of skittish about like asking their company like, should I see if this is possible? I'm afraid if I ask them, they say no. Now they think I'm going to be on the chopping block in case they want to replace somebody. And I think that good companies want to find ways to retain good people, and I think that's the biggest thing that we're seeing. And obviously throwing us in that category, but in general, in the industry, in any industry really, there's so much more work from home, so much flexible work things happening that organizations are realizing that people are going to have life situations change, and there's a lot more of that kind of flexibility we're seeing kind of across the board. So it's kind of a cool time, and knowing that we've had situations like that arise here. But I always kind of advise people that like if you're worried about putting up a red flag, like in most organizations, that fear is greatly overstated, because they're going to want to find a way to keep you.
Well, I think there's 2 parts to it. I think it's somewhat awareness of your company. Are they, with the times enough to recognize that they have to do whatever they can to keep good people? But the second part is a bit of self-awareness, and are you capable and able to be productive in in an unstructured environment where you're not around the rest of the coworkers? And I think that is sometimes a challenge, because I think it is not right for everybody. But if you've been a proven performer and been able to achieve goals or achieve any sort of expectations or milestones, companies would be foolish to not try to make it work. So I think that's kind of the important thing to look at. But as you said, it's being proactive with your with your employer. And I think what do we have? 3 people working remotely right now, and it's great. I mean, we're,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I said,
I mean, 15 years ago, you would have been like, oh yeah, sure, let's hire a bunch of remote. Like, that's not even something that probably crossed your mind, but just
Right.
like seeing how things have worked out. So no, that's the thing that I've enjoyed about being here is that there's been so much opportunity to get into new things. Like I've had a chance to kind of build out a new practice area 5 years ago with digital, and as you say now, I just do professional podcasts. So this is my job has
Best job
become
ever.
great. But I think that's, I'm always a big proponent that I think the best way to retain employees is to make sure they're heard and to make sure they're challenged and make sure they have new opportunities to do. And I think that working at an organization where you're always given an opportunity to get into new areas, do new things, organization that's willing to test out new business models is where you want to be. So that's why I've enjoyed being here, boss.
Thanks. Glad to hear it. So I know one of the things you want to talk about was offices. I think early on we moved probably more than we would have liked. So I think roughly 10 years ago we were still at 10 South Riverside, which was a great building. We'd taken on a sublease, and so obviously it ended, and we were kind of outgrowing at the time. So then we moved over to the Opera House, another sublease, which that was probably sort of a questionable move because we outgrew it pretty quick.
Yeah. That was my most hated office, I would say, hands down.
Yeah. Location was good. I always like to be that close to the kind
Yeah.
of the train and the river. A lot going on, just a nice spot to be. But then I think we finally made a decent move coming over to 200 West Jackson. Another sublease, but it was at least a longer term one. And we've now been in our second space in this building, just as we've, not really by choice, but our landlord informed us a couple years ago that we were going to be moved to a new location within the building. The plus side was they built out the space, and we now have a podcast room, and
This is an actual studio. This is not a small office which we just put stuff on the wall for. This is a professional grade recording studio.
Mm-hmm. In that time, so I think we've got another, as I get reminded by real estate brokers all the time, our lease is up in 2 years, but we'll obviously we've got quite a good deal on it, so we will make this work as long as humanly possible. But I think other exciting news. So we launched an Atlanta office about a year and a half ago, which has gone great. Got 3 people down there now, and then kind of the next exciting move that's sort of, I guess, somewhat been formally announced is we are expanding into Dallas. That has essentially happened this month, but it's more of like a 2020 thing that we're excited about, and getting in a new space there.
Nice. You want to talk more about that, or is it still kind of on the down low?
It's we'll talk more in the kind of our kickoff, but we're launching in a new area with we've been very functionally focused, so tech, digital marketing, human resources, sales, finance, and accounting. But we're excited to be moving into recruiting within the real estate space. So excited about that. More to come.
Awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about today while we got you live here?
I think we covered most of it. I think some of the exciting, we're gonna we've launched a internal marketing team, and I think some of the exciting things I want to do is just sort of start to highlight. We'll put out a couple of infographics on sort of the growth that we've done as a company, everything that's happened over the decade. I think the company's grown. Unfortunately, we've all just gotten a lot older. But I think one thing we'll do is just kind of show pictures of kind of the before and after. Talk about some of the highlights of the decade. I think if you look back on it, Cubs finally winning a World Series was a big milestone. And I guess I didn't have any kids. Both of my kids were in the prior decade, but they've gotten a lot older. I think as a company, we went from having, I think, like 4 kids total from employees, and now we have to be upwards of 20. So there's been grown outside the office too.
On the Cubs line, it also reminds me when we used to actually have like events on Thursday nights, which have since gone by the wayside. So it's
the old Thursday night company outing at the Cubs game, and then
whoops.
Those Fridays weren't quite as productive. Now it's Friday Cubs games. So
yeah. Well, cool. I don't think I got anything else this week. So want to wish everyone a happy holiday. We look forward to seeing everyone in 2020. Just to wrap things up here, thanks for listening to Hirewell's Recruiting Insights podcast. If you like what you heard and want more insights from our recruiting experts, visit hirewell.com/recruiting-insights. And remember to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. See you soon.
Thanks.